Hey, board gamers, BJ from Board Game Gumbo here, back in the Gumbo pot with another Kickstarter Lagniappe. This time we're taking a look at Grand Tourney, brand new game coming from Grinning Demons. It's in their Soul Shard universe, it's designed by designer Yitzi Santer. It's a game for 1 to 4 players, and it takes about 45 minutes per player, but it's got some interesting combinations I want to show you. I'm going to show you 3 things that intrigue me about the game and also a little bit of lagniappe as it comes up to the production. This is a prototype version, so what I'm going to show you at the table, nothing is final. The artwork's still being worked on. A lot of these components are going to be changed, so make sure you think about that when we're looking at the project. But let's get right to that table and see what's coming up. All right, I've got it set up. We're taking a look at the actual board. This is kind of after a couple of days. The premise of the game is that we're adventurers and we've wandered into this land, and we have 2 weeks to get ready for the Grand Tourney. And what I mean by that is this is kind of a hybrid game. There's some Euro elements, but there's also some chuck and dice Ameritrash elements that I'm going to talk about when I look at it. Let's look at the board real quick. You're going to see that the board is set up into a number of different zones. And those zones are basically worker placement spots. We'll take our little standees and we'll put them in those spots. And then once all the players have placed all their for lack of a better word, the meeples, their characters, then we'll, in order of these numbers, we'll actually take those zone effects. And the zone effects are everything from getting more of the currency of the game, throwing out more cards to be able to look at in each of the different areas, getting some stuff that you can use in your battles like swords and armor, fighting over here in the arena against some of the monsters, recruiting mercenaries to help you along the way, or gathering spells in different ways to buff up your character. There's a bunch of different spots here, even healing up over here at the end. Bunch of different spots, but over the course of those 14 days here on the board, we're going to be building up our characters and doing all those things in an effort to get ready for that Grand Tourney. So we do have some player boards there. Can't really see them. Well, let me see if I can show them over to you. The reason I'm not so worried about showing is this is prototypes. This is all going to change in the main production. Like for instance, these little markers here, they're going to have little recessed spots, little holes, so that way they're not going to slide around on here. And none of the artwork is final. There's like not a lot of background stuff on these, just characters, but it's nice that they have a bunch of different characters that come with the game. I do like that. A lot of diversity, a lot of representation with all kinds of different creatures and humanoid looking people, some of them that I haven't seen before. But again, like I said, this board and this artwork is going to change during the project. So what intrigued me about the project is 3 things that I'm going to be looking for in the project itself, because this is not a paid preview or anything. They just sent me a prototype copy to take a look at, play some rounds, send it on to the next people. And so I'll be looking at the project myself to decide whether I want to back. But there's 3 things that kind of intrigue me about this project from Grinning Demon. And it is in the Soul Shards universe, so there's some continuity if you're familiar with that company and its universe. So the first thing that intrigued me was this is a game that looks like a one worker placement game where you're competing for all these spots, but there's whatever it is, 10 or 11 spots on the board. So it doesn't seem like a lot of competition. But you can increase the number of workers that you get through these mercenary actions over here in the tavern. Now, they do take an economy. Your board shows you that the first one to unlock that space to get that mercenary, you're going to need 3 fame to get that. Fame being basically, victory or your renown in this world. But I like that. I like the fact that you can upgrade and get more workers, and especially like that. Even though they're not quite as good as your players, the mercenaries themselves are going to help you in not only getting spots and increasing your cadre of people, but also helping you in the battles. So that's a really cool idea. I like the idea of one worker placement games. It's been done before. I like the idea of combination games, and this is a cool combo of the two sides. All right, number 2, the second thing that I really that really intrigues me about this is I like any kind of game where you can customize your characters. It's not an asymmetric game. Okay, so you're not completely different like in Merchant's Cove or in Root or something like that. But you can design your character during the game kind of the way you want. And you'll do that by by getting these spells and these buffs, and of course everybody can grab different types of armor using the souls as a currency. Everyone can get different types of mercenaries, or even the number of mercenaries. So throughout the course of the game, and each character actually does start with different types of skills. So for instance, Steve has these type of things here, 2, 2, and 2 of each one of the 3 main skill functions. And Flicker has, slide these over, has 1, 3, and 2. And all of the different characters in there are different when it comes to that. So not asymmetric, but it is customizable. And that's the kind of games that I do like, because the customization, you're going to want to play a different character every time, not just for the artwork, but also for their skills. And each one of the little characters has different little skills that they already start with. So for instance, Steve starts with outmaneuvering, where you gain a +1 defense this round and you deal 2 damage. He also starts with versatility, gain +2 on all of your green and red and blue rolls. Or orange, sorry, green, orange, and blue rolls. So when you're trying to roll your stats, that's one of the things that Steve's going to give you a little bonus on that. So again, makes you want to play the game more. And the fact that you can customize these even further by the stuff that you get on the board, that's the kind of things that generally intrigue me. Number 3, and this is probably the thing that attracted me whenever they reached out about talking about this game. Because, I mean, let's face it, we've seen lots of Euros, we've seen lots of fighty, smash, roll dice. But what intrigued me about this one is that it's both. The main part of the game, the main way that you play the game, is basically a combo. It's a hybrid game. It is 14 rounds of going through and upgrading all your characters and trying to get the currency in the game so that you could buy more stuff, trying to get your fame up so that you can attract more mercenaries. And then as players go into the arena, it'll stop during that round when we do all of the zone effects. It'll actually stop and we'll fight the monsters that are in the arena. And the monsters are for the most part hidden, but there are ways of flipping the cards to see what kind of monsters that they have. And they actually are different. You have these little level 1 monsters, the sharp claw cat, that relatively simple to beat. It's only a level 1. But you might have something like let's see, like here, a wyvern, and that's 6. So you got the level 6s and 7s, and you can't beat those by yourself. You're gonna have to develop your character and get some equipment and get some mercenaries, maybe even tag team with all of that together to try to defeat them. So on the one hand, you're doing all this Euro stuff of trying to maximize the efficiency of your turns, trying to get more mercenaries so that you can have even better turns, getting the right zone effects to combo together so that you can get the stuff that you need to make your characters better. But then you got these fights, and the fights are all about chucking dice, rolling these dice, trying to smash them. And then on top of that, you throw at the end, after day 14, after the 2 weeks are up, you've got this versus part here. And what that is the Grand Tourney. Whoever's playing, so let's say you have 4 players playing, at the end you're going to go 2 versus 2, where this pair is going to pair up and fight, and then this pair is going to pair up and fight. I guess you could do it at the same time. I haven't played it before. And then the winners would actually face each other, and whoever wins that battle wins the whole game. Forget about all the stuff you've done during the game. It's building up your character for that big fight at the end. I've been playing games a long time. I don't remember. I'm sure there is something like that out there, but I don't remember any game that does that, especially not with this theme, with all this fantasy elements and the way to build up your character. So I'm kind of intrigued about that, to see how they develop that in the game campaign. Let's talk about one problem that I did have with the game, and I just want to warn you about that. Remember, I'm looking at prototype. I'm looking at our first draft of a rule book, but the rule book needs some work. So I'm going to be looking in the campaign to see if they've taken on a lot of the play testing and a lot of the feedback from the reviewers and previewers, and have developed a better rule book that explains the process. Like the player aid cards are great, that's basically what I've been referring to. But they're still shorthand, and there are some fiddly things we have to go back during, whenever we're doing these zone effects, or even during the battle. I mean, the battle is when you're doing the battle in the arena. There's a lot of fight sequence things that you have to do kind of in order. And so I'm going to be looking for a more modern rule book that explains all of this. This is not a knock on the game because, as I've said, I'm not knocking the art, I'm not knocking the components, because this is just a preview copy. We'll have to see what happens in the Kickstarter. But promises made, right? Promises have to be delivered. I want to see when a Kickstarter game has a rule book, and usually they'll be posted online or during the campaign. I want to see how that is, so how far they've come with streamlining that rule book into something a little bit more modern. At the same time, I do want to talk about some Lagniappe. So when I was intrigued by the game and taking a look at it, I was excited about the hybrid version, but I didn't realize they've actually developed other parts to it too. So in addition to the typical Lagniappe that I like to talk about, where they're going to upgrade these boards. So if this thing funds, you're going to see boards that have recessed parts to put all these cubes. But in addition to that, there are 3 game modes that you can play if you don't want to play this 14 round, then do a face-off battle with all the players for the actual wins, right? The 3 modes, from what I can see, are going to be something like, if you like the actual fighty fight part, well, forget all this other part. Just draft the cards and play a quick game where you have a certain amount of souls at the start, and you draft cards, pay for the cards. There's your character. Let's go right to the Grand Tourney. That's kind of interesting. Maybe that's what you like to do. Or maybe you like the fighting with the monsters part. How about a co-op element where everybody's working together to try to beat all 18 of the monsters? There are, a ton of monsters that start with just your basic level 1s all the way up to those level 7s, like, the dragons and basilisks and harpies and phoenix, and all of that artwork is in there. So they're gonna have a lot of monsters in here, and that's one way of playing it. It's almost like a video game. You're like, can we beat all the monsters together? And then the third way you can play it is, if you just like the Euro elements, then you can forget the Grand Tourney and just try to score points during the game using the 14 days, taking out the monsters, building up your characters, and see if you can score the points. Or whoever has the most points wins the game. So that's a little Lagniappe for you. Something to keep an eye out. Some better components that they promised, and also those 3 modules that they have. Plus it plays solo too. It's not really a Lagniappe, but you can play the game solo if you want. And so those are the 3 things that I'm really kind of excited about in this game. And then, some of the Lagniappe and what we're expecting in the game that I'll be taking a look whenever the project comes live. All right, so that's Grand Tourney from Grinning Demon Games. I want to thank them for sending us this preview copy. And remember, take a good hard look in the Kickstarter campaign, because the artwork that I'm showing you here is very early. There's nothing fleshed out in the cards or on the board and everything. And of course, the boards themselves, the player boards themselves, are just basic things that we could use for our previews. We want to take a look at those components because they are going to be upgraded during the campaign. And also, we want to see the rulebook and how much they fleshed out those 4 different ways of playing the game, because I think that's going to bring some replayability. If you can play it as a quick game, you can play it as a big Euro game, or you can play it as this hybrid Ameritrash Euro big fight at the end and fights during the game. So there's a lot to look at, and I do want to thank them for singing it to us. Until next time, les bon temps roulé.